Hello, Peter.
Hello there.
Right. Now, we've had an inquiry from the classes 1E and 1T from the Widford Lodge School. And it was Julie Eggleton, I think, who you met at Boxted.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And she's sent me this picture, which is of the children. And these are the models and the paintings that they've made of Lancasters and their aeroplanes.
And they're very good, aren't they?
They are. And they've done those to show you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
very nice indeed. And very smart children.
They are, aren't they? And they've been reading parts of your book in class. And so from that, they've got some questions which they wanted to ask you. Can I ask you a few questions?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. Right. So first of all, let's just tilt that a wee bit. So, what animals did you have on the farm when you were growing up?
Well, we had almost all the animals you can imagine, really. We had all the farm animals, the cows, the sheep, the pigs, horses, dogs, cats, and of course many mice, rats, and we also had to get rid of the rats and mice. We had ferrets, which we could also use to catch rabbits. We had geese, ducks, chickens, guinea fowl, and turkeys. We had the ones with the big tail. Peacocks.
Yeah.
Yes, and so many other birds, pigeons, and also pheasants, partridges, and almost anything. My mother would probably go to the market and buy something unusual. She came back on one occasion with a skunk, which was only a baby at the time. We had just left the parent, as you might say, and that became my friend. I carried it around on my shoulder for ages, but it had been treated so that it didn't stink. But a lot of and it's strange that other animals knew that the skunk was dangerous to them, and would probably kill them if it got the chance. So they probably also knew that normally it would be able to stink them out if it was frightened. But
and you had a goat as well, didn't you?
I had a goat, yes, and which I had used for breeding. He was able to jump at about 7 or 8 feet high and jump over the hedge sideways, which seemed very strange, but he would run along the side of the hedge and then suddenly jump over sideways and end on the other side and continue running. Yeah.
Right, the next question. How many subjects did you do at school?
I did everything that I could possibly get. I wanted to know everything, and so I studied everything I could. I was just unable not to be interested in something. I kept, whatever came up, I felt I need to know all about it, and I tried very hard to be very good at everything.
Good. Did you like your teachers?
Some of my teachers were very nice. Some of them helped me a great deal. Only one or two I didn't get on very well with. One of the headmaster of one school thought I was cheating in exams, and he gave me the cane quite often. It's just as well they don't have the cane now. The way I feel now, I don't know anything.
How did you feel when you joined the secret army?
My father was in the secret army as well as myself, and he had been in it for some time before I joined. I knew what he was doing. I knew his involvement, which meant that when I joined, it was an extension, perhaps, of the Home Guard, which I'd been. I was in the Home Guard first, and then they called me away from the Home Guard to go into the Secret Army, and it was almost a natural progression. I wanted to help in any way I could, and I tried very hard to try to get up to the standard that my father and the others were, but I wasn't in long enough to become an expert.
Okay, and somebody's asked here, how many crew members were there on the Lancaster bomber?
We had 7 normal crew members on a Lancaster bomber. Sometimes we had more. For instance, if a new pilot came onto the squadron, we would sometimes take one so that he could see what to expect when he had his own crew. I belonged to what was called the Sector 14, and we had the squadrons had aircraft fitted with special communications equipment, and an 8th member who could speak German very clearly and fluently would use that equipment and try to confuse the Germans by overriding their signals and giving new orders which could possibly take the fighter aircraft away from us instead of towards us.
Good, thank you. And how did you get into your position on the Lancaster bomber?
There was a door on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side of the Lancaster, about 3/4 of the way back, and we had a ladder so that we could climb up the ladder and get into that door. Some of the others went into the plane from the front of the aircraft, but I used to go to the back one and then slide down the ramp which ran to the rear turret, and then I would open the doors of the turret and get inside. It was very difficult because we had so many layers of clothes to keep the cold out. That I think I looked like a dumpling, and it was a bit of such a squeeze that sometimes it was hard to be able to close the doors of the turret behind me. Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like inside your turret?
Very cramped. The guns were. I sat centrally in the turret, looking out through a gap at the outside, immediately in front of me, where we had taken the perspex out so that it didn't. We didn't get any. Condensation, which would have stopped me seeing if a German plane came along or not. So that meant that the cold could come in from the back, from the back of the and into the turret at any time, and it was most uncomfortable. On each side of the right and left side of my shoulders, as you might say, looking forward, there were guns, and I had two on each side, which I fired with a trigger, and it was quite difficult if the guns jammed or did anything like that. They would stop for any reason, because that meant I would have to free the obstruction, and with maybe 7 or 8 pairs of gloves. That was very hard work.
Okay, and that was the next question here, was actually how did you fire the guns?
I just had like a control, like a very small handlebars, which controlled the movement of the turret to right, left, and up at the guns up and down, and also I could then move the turret and the guns at the same time, and if I needed to fire the guns, I had 2 triggers, which one on each side, that I could pull and fire the guns.
Okay. Did you shoot down any planes?
No, I did not fire my guns against any German aircraft or enemy aircraft, because I always managed to evade any of them that attacked us before they could get to us, which meant that my guns didn't have the range to do any damage to the enemy aircraft, so there was no point in firing the guns unless they got close enough. But the whole reason for me being there was to avoid, if possible, the German aircraft before they could fire at us.
Okay, and so the other questions were about you being shot down. Obviously you weren't, because the planes never got there, and you weren't worried that they were shooting at you, because they weren't shooting at you, were they?
No.
Was it noisy on the aeroplane?
It was. with 4 Merlin engines, the noise was so tremendous that there was no hope of conversation unless you had
the intercom
and the hearing aid of the
in your helmet, yeah.
In the helmet, which you could turn up to get a much stronger volume of...
Yeah, make it louder for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're a little bit deaf now, aren't you, Peter?
I'm very deaf now. I have what is called Lancaster ear, which means that the vibration from those engines was so great that it just broke and tore the tiny hairs that take sound into the ear and destroyed them. So I need very, very powerful hearing aids to be able to hear what people are saying.
Okay, we're running out of time here, so just one more. How did you feel when France gave you your medal?
Well, I thought that was rather a wonderful gesture from France, but I felt that I would have so much more preferred that my own country had given me a knighthood instead of France. The French medal it gave me a knighthood as well as the oh dear.
Yeah. Okay. And right. Well, thank you, Peter. So, do you want to say goodbye to the class?
Well, yes. I must say goodbye to you all, and I think you look a very lovely class. I do hope you enjoy what I've told you, and that you I have been able to make it clear enough for you to understand.
Right. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thanks
a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.